A declaration of war arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. It wasn't dramatic at first, just a simple ping on communication systems across 17 human star systems. The message appeared simultaneously on personal devices, public screens, and government channels. High Admiral Juwan Park was enjoying her breakfast in the garden of her new Terra home when her tablet chimed with a priority alert. The sunlight filtered through orange-leaved trees as she sipped her coffee and opened the message. Her eyes widened as she read. Then, to her own surprise, she began to chuckle. Coffee spilled onto her uniform as she laughed harder. "Computer, verify authenticity," she said, wiping her mouth. Message verified. Origin: Deep Space, Sector 7 Delta. Species identification: Duraxian Collective. Juwan had never heard of the Duraxians. No human had. Yet here they were, declaring formal war on all of humanity with elaborate, almost ceremonial language. "We, the glorious Duraxian Collective, by ancient right and cosmic law, do hereby declare a state of total war against the human concord," she read aloud, her smile growing wider with each pompous phrase. "Surrender your territories or face annihilation by our superior forces." The document went on for pages, detailing grievances about border violations that had never occurred and resource disputes over planets humans had never claimed. It included formal protocols for surrender ceremonies and prisoner exchanges. The Duraxians had clearly spent considerable effort on this document. Juwan forwarded the message to her staff with a brief note. "Seems we have visitors. Interesting ones." Within an hour, the United Human Concord convened an emergency session. Representatives from Earth, Mars, the Jovian moons, and 14 colony worlds gathered virtually in the council chamber. Council leader Min-Ho Lee called the meeting to order. "I assume everyone has seen the declaration?" he asked, struggling to keep a straight face. "Do we know anything about these Duraxians?" asked Representative Jisoo Kang from Proxima Colony. Dr. Haijin Ryu, head of xenobiology, stepped forward. "Very little. Our deep space probes detected energy signatures from their direction about 6 months ago, but this is our first communication. Their technology appears advanced, but not beyond our understanding." "And they want war?" asked Representative Kang, the word sounding strange in her mouth. "Actual combat." The chamber fell silent before soft laughter began to spread. War was a concept humans studied in history classes. The last armed conflict between humans had ended nearly 3,000 years ago. Weapons existed only in museums and historical archives. "What do they expect us to do?" someone asked. "Dust off the battleships and line up in formation." Fresh laughter rippled through the chamber. Juwan Park raised her hand. "The Duraxians appear to follow some kind of ritualized warfare protocol. Their message includes detailed instructions for how we should respond, right down to the proper formations for our non-existent battle fleets." "Should we be concerned?" asked Min-Ho Lee, his expression turning more serious. "They may have actual weapons. My team is analyzing their approach vectors now," Juwan replied. "They have a fleet moving toward Proxima Centauri, but they're moving slowly, almost ceremonially. It's as if they expect us to rally our forces and meet them halfway. As if we've been sitting around for 3 millennia waiting for someone to fight," Dr. Ryu said with a smile. Council leader Lee tapped his fingers thoughtfully. "We should respond, of course, but how does one answer a declaration of war when your society has evolved beyond warfare?" "We could explain that we've outgrown armed conflict," suggested Representative Kang. "They might not understand," Juwan pointed out. "Their entire message suggests a culture built around combat and conquest. Such societies often can't comprehend alternatives." Dr. Taho Kim, the renowned xenoanthropologist, joined the discussion. "This is actually fascinating. We're witnessing first contact with a species that evolved along entirely different social lines than humanity. I volunteer to lead a diplomatic mission to meet them." "A mission?" Min-Ho Lee looked concerned. "They've declared war on us, Dr. Kim." All the more reason to meet them, Tahoe replied eagerly. This isn't a threat. It's a cultural exchange opportunity. The council debated briefly before agreeing. They would send Dr. Kim with a small team to meet the Duraxians, not as enemies, but as curious neighbors. As the meeting adjourned, Juan Park lingered in the garden outside the council chamber. She watched butterflies dance between flowers and thought about the strange message. In the 3,000 years since humans had abandoned warfare, they had explored the stars, eliminated disease, and created art that would have astonished their ancestors. Yet somewhere out there, advanced beings still clung to the old ways of settling differences. She smiled to herself. The coming weeks would be interesting indeed. The human ship Harmony approached the edge of the Proxima Centauri system with no weapons, no shields, and no military escort. Instead, it carried a diplomatic team, scientific instruments, and a cargo hold full of cultural artifacts, music recordings, and art pieces. Dr. Tahoe Kim stood at the observation deck, watching as the stars shifted around them. Approaching Duraxian fleet, announced the ship's estimated size, 327 vessels of varying classes. Tahoe felt a flutter of excitement rather than fear. In his 50 years as a xenoanthropologist, he had never encountered a truly warlike species. The Duraxians might be the most important discovery of his career. Visual contact established, said the eye. The view screen filled with images of massive black ships arranged in precise geometric patterns. Each vessel bristled with what appeared to be weapon systems, their hulls adorned with red symbols that likely represented battle honors. The formation was beautiful in its mathematical precision. "They're hailing us," said Communications Officer Do Yun. "Audio and visual. Accept the transmission," Tahoe replied calmly. The screen shifted to show a being with dark gray skin and 4 eyes arranged vertically on a narrow face. Ridges of bone protected its skull, and armor covered its torso. When it spoke, its voice rumbled deeply. "I am Supreme Commander Vex Moore of the Duraxian Collective Battle Fleet. You have entered combat space. Identify yourselves." Tahoe stepped forward with a smile. "Greetings, Supreme Commander. I am Dr. Tahoe Kim of the United Human Concord. We come in response to your declaration. We are unarmed and wish to discuss matters peacefully." The alien's 4 eyes blinked in different patterns. "Unarmed. Where is your battle fleet? We detected only this single vessel approaching." "We have no battle fleet, Commander," Tahoe explained. "Humans have not maintained military vessels for nearly 3,000 years. We've come to meet you and learn about your culture." A long silence followed. The alien commander turned to speak with others off-screen, their conversation too quiet to hear. When Vex Moore turned back, his posture had stiffened. "This is unacceptable. The protocols require formal exchange of challenges, display of forces, and honorable combat. You mock our traditions." "No mockery is intended," Tahoe assured him. "Our cultures are different. We'd like to understand yours better. Would you permit us to dock with your vessel for face-to-face discussions?" More off-screen consultation occurred before Vex Moore responded. "Proceed to docking Bay 4. You will be escorted to the command chamber. No more than 5 representatives." The transmission ended abruptly. "That went well," said Do-Yun with a nervous laugh. 4 hours later, Tahoe led a small team onto the Duraxian flagship. The interior was austere, all function with no aesthetic considerations. Armed guards towered over the humans, watching their every move with suspicious eyes. The command chamber was circular, with a raised platform in the center where Vex Moore stood surrounded by officers. The walls displayed tactical maps of the star system, with human settlements marked in red. "You have violated our territory," Vex Moore began without greeting. "For generations, the Proxima system has been designated as future expansion space for the collective." Tahoe tilted his head. "Interesting. Humans have lived here for over 800 years. We were unaware of any prior claim." "The claim was registered in the Grand Archive on Dorax Prime," stated Vex Moore, as if this explained everything. "I see. But we had no way of knowing about your archives, as we've never communicated before, Tahoe pointed out gently. A lower-ranking Duraxian leaned toward Vex more. Supreme Commander, our scans confirm their vessel carries no weapons. In fact, we detect no weapons technologies in the entire system. Impossible, Vexmore growled. No species survives without defenses. We defend ourselves through cooperation and mutual aid, explained Tahoe. We brought gifts to share our culture with you. He gestured to the containers his team had brought aboard. The Duraxians watched with confusion as the humans unpacked paintings, holographic sculptures, and musical instruments. One young officer approached cautiously to examine a small flowering plant. These are not weapons or surrender terms, Vex Moore said. What game do you play, humans? No game. We simply don't resolve conflicts through violence anymore, Tahoe said. We found better ways centuries ago. Then how do you establish dominance? How do you expand your territory? Asked a Duraxian officer. We don't need to dominate others, and we expand through peaceful settlement of uninhabited worlds, Tahoe explained. Vexmore paced the platform, clearly agitated. You speak nonsense. War is the natural state. It is how species evolve and improve. Perhaps for some, but humans nearly destroyed ourselves through war before we changed, Tahoe said, activating a hologram showing Earth's history, including its devastating final conflicts and subsequent renaissance. The Duraxians watched in silence. Some appeared fascinated, others disturbed. You expect us to believe your species abandoned its nature? Vexmore finally asked. We transformed our nature, Tahoe corrected. We redirected our competitive drives toward creation rather than destruction. And if we destroy one of your worlds, what then? Tahoe met the commander's 4 eyes steadily. We would mourn the loss and still seek peaceful resolution. Violence would only prove our path is the wiser one. The command chamber fell silent as the Duraxians processed this response. It contradicted everything their culture had taught them about how the universe functioned. You are either the wisest beings we have encountered, Vexmore said finally, or the most foolish. We must consider this situation further. As Tahoe and his team returned to their ship, he knew the real diplomatic work was just beginning. The Duraxians hadn't abandoned their war. They simply didn't know how to proceed against an enemy who refused to fight back. 3 days passed with no communication from the Duraxian fleet. Dr. Tahoe Kim and his team remained aboard the Harmony, sending regular messages offering further dialogue. Each message went unanswered. Meanwhile, news of the alien warships spread throughout human space, creating not fear but intense curiosity. Another 200 civilian vessels have entered the system, reported Doyun, shaking his head in disbelief. They're requesting permission to observe the Duraxian fleet. Tahoe sighed. Tell them to maintain safe distance. The Duraxians might interpret their presence as hostile. Hostile. They're mostly tourist ships and university research vessels. One is a children's educational cruise from New Terra. Before Tahoe could respond, their communication system activated. Commander Vexmore's face appeared on screen, his 4 eyes narrowed with what seemed like frustration. Human representative, he said curtly. The War Council has deliberated. Your refusal to engage in proper combat protocols cannot be tolerated. The Duraxian collective will not be mocked. No mockery was intended, Tahoe replied calmly. We simply... Silence. Vexmore interrupted. We have decided on a demonstration. Direct your attention to the uninhabited moon of your 4th planet. There, you will witness Duraxian power. Perhaps then you will understand the seriousness of your situation. The transmission ended abruptly. They're going to attack the moon, Doyun asked, eyes wide. It seems so, Tahoe replied. Alert the Council and warn all ships to keep their distance from Proxima Ivy's moon. Within an hour, the Duraxian fleet shifted position. Several of their largest vessels moved into formation around the barren, rocky moon that orbited Proxima Ivy. The moon had no settlements, no mining operations, Nothing of value to humans. All civilian vessels have been notified, Do-yun said. But instead of leaving, more are arriving. Tahoe looked at the sensor display with alarm. Hundreds of human ships were positioning themselves at what they apparently considered a safe viewing distance. What are they doing? He muttered. According to their communications, they're treating this as an event, Do-yun said, listening to the transmissions. Several are having parties aboard their ships. One research vessel is excited about the unprecedented opportunity to observe alien weapons technology. Tahoe closed his eyes briefly. The Duraxians won't understand this reaction. On the view screen, the Duraxian warships had completed their formation. A bright energy beam suddenly erupted from the flagship, joined seconds later by beams from other vessels. The combined energy struck the moon's surface with blinding intensity. The effect was spectacular. A massive explosion bloomed across the lunar surface, sending debris flying into space. A crater formed, glowing red-hot, visible even from distant ships. The Duraxian beams continued for nearly a minute before cutting off. Almost immediately, human communication channels exploded with activity. Amazing. Did you see that light show? The crater must be 50 kilometers wide. Perfect recording conditions. To Tahoe's horror, many of the civilian vessels were moving closer to get better views of the aftermath. Others were sharing images across human networks, commenting on the beauty of the explosion against the darkness of space. We're being hailed by Commander Vex Moore, Do-yun announced. The Duraxian commander appeared, clearly expecting to see terror on the human faces. Instead, he found Tahoe looking concerned but calm. You have witnessed our power, Vex Moore stated. That was merely 1% of our fleet's capability. You now understand your position. Tahoe chose his words carefully. We understand you have powerful weapons, Commander. We never doubted this. But I must explain something about the human reaction you're observing. Reaction. Vex Moore's upper eyes narrowed. The vessels approaching your fleet are civilian ships. The people aboard are fascinated by your demonstration. They consider it an interesting spectacle, not a threat. Impossible, Vex Moore growled. We just destroyed a moon. An uninhabited moon with no value to us, Tahoe explained gently. Many humans are treating this as an entertainment event. Some are broadcasting it as a natural phenomenon, like a meteor shower or solar flare. Vex Moore's face contorted with what might have been confusion or rage. They mock our military might. No, they simply don't view it as something to fear. Humans moved beyond using destruction as a show of power long ago. As if to prove his point, a small transport ship flew past the view screen, its exterior lights flashing in patterns that, to human eyes, were clearly celebratory. Commander, Tahoe continued, perhaps we could meet again to discuss why our cultures view this situation so differently. The Duraxian commander stared silently for several seconds before responding. Your species defies understanding. The War Council must reconsider our approach. The transmission ended. Tahoe turned to Do-yun. Contact Dr. Hyejin Ryu immediately. I need to know if our AI systems have successfully infiltrated the Duraxian weapons network yet. You think they'll try something bigger next time? I'm certain of it, Tahoe replied. But what they don't know is that while they've been focusing on demonstrations, our defense systems have been quietly studying their technology. By now, our AIs should have found ways to neutralize their targeting systems without harming a single Duraxian. Do-yun smiled slightly. So if they try to attack an actual settlement, nothing will happen, Tahoe finished. But we need to be prepared for how they'll react to that failure. A species built around warfare won't surrender easily, especially not to a civilization that laughs at their shows of force. Outside the view screen, more human ships arrived, their lights twinkling against the darkness as they positioned themselves for the best view of the damaged moon. Treating one of the most powerful weapons in the galaxy as nothing more than an unexpected fireworks display. The council chamber on New Terra buzzed with activity as representatives from all human colonies gathered both in person and via hologram. High Admiral Juan Park stood at the center, addressing the assembly with calm confidence. "The Duraxians are preparing for a second demonstration," she explained. "Our intelligence suggests they plan to target an automated mining facility on Proxima VI. They believe this will force us to acknowledge their military superiority." Council leader Minho Lee frowned. "And our defensive measures?" "In place," Juan confirmed. "Our AI systems have fully mapped their weapons technology. We can neutralize their targeting systems without causing harm to their ships or crew." Dr. Taho Kim stepped forward. "I've studied their communications extensively. The Duraxians define themselves through conflict. Their entire social structure, their art, their religion, everything centers around warfare. They literally cannot comprehend a species that has moved beyond it." "Then perhaps," said Dr. Hyejin Ryu thoughtfully, "we should help them comprehend." "What do you suggest?" asked Minho. Hyejin smiled. "A counter-offensive, but not the kind they expect." 2 days later, the Duraxian fleet positioned itself around Proxima VI, a small rocky planet with automated mining facilities that extracted rare minerals from its surface. No humans lived there permanently. Only maintenance crews visited monthly. Commander Vex Moore stood on his flagship's bridge, watching the planet grow larger on the view screen. His officers waited tensely for his command. This demonstration would be different. The humans would finally understand the threat they faced. "Weapons systems at full power," reported his second-in-command, "targeting the main mining complex." "Commence firing," Vex Moore ordered. The massive energy weapons of 30 Duraxian warships activated simultaneously. Beams of destructive energy shot toward the planet's surface, and then veered off course, dissipating harmlessly into space. "What happened?" Vex Moore demanded. "Unknown malfunction, Commander. Weapons fired but missed." "Impossible. Fire again." Again the weapons fired, and again they'd mysteriously missed their target. The bridge crew worked frantically to identify the problem. "Commander," called the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission. It's everywhere, on all channels simultaneously." Before Vex Moore could respond, the ship's displays changed. Instead of tactical data, they showed images of Earth, ancient Earth, scared by warfare. The images shifted through centuries of human history: battles, destruction, rebuilding, more battles. A gentle voice narrated in perfect Duraxian language. "Like you, we once defined ourselves through combat. We nearly destroyed ourselves and our homeworld. Then we chose a different path." The images changed to show Earth's transformation. Cities being rebuilt not for defense, but for beauty and function. Weapons being dismantled. The first colonies on Mars and the Moon. The voice continued, explaining how humans had redirected their competitive nature toward exploration, art, and scientific discovery. "We're under attack," exclaimed an officer. "No," Vex Moore realized. "This is their response. Their counter-offensive." On every ship in the Duraxian fleet, the same transmission played. It couldn't be blocked or silenced. The vast information network of human civilization had easily bypassed Duraxian security protocols. The transmission continued, showing human achievements: the curing of diseases, the development of faster-than-light travel, art that could make viewers weep, music that could touch hearts across species barriers. Then came personal stories, humans talking directly to camera, explaining their lives, their work, their dreams. Children sharing their artwork and hopes for the future. Elderly people describing how society had improved during their lifetimes. One segment showed a 6-year-old girl named Subin from New Terra. She held up a colorful drawing of what appeared to be a Duraxian and a human holding hands under a rainbow. "I made this for the aliens," she said with a gap-toothed smile. "I hope we can be friends." Vex Moore watched, unable to look away. Something stirred within him, an emotion he couldn't identify. Throughout his fleet, similar reactions spread among his officers and crew. Some watched in confusion, others in fascination. Some even seemed moved. The human transmission concluded with an invitation. Join us. We have much to learn from each other. War is easy. Peace is the greater challenge and the greater achievement. Then, normal operations returned to the Duraxian systems. The bridge fell silent. Your orders, Commander, asked his second-in-command. Vexmore stared at the screen, now showing the mining facility they had failed to destroy. Prepare a response team. I will speak with these humans myself. As the Duraxians scrambled to formulate their answer to this unexpected attack, they remained unaware that human ships had quietly positioned themselves throughout the system, not to fight, but to protect. If any faction of the Duraxian fleet attempted to harm civilians, either human or Duraxian, the ships were ready to intervene with non-lethal defensive measures. Back on New Terra, Juwan Park received confirmation that the transmission had been successfully delivered. Do you think it will work? Asked Minnow. I don't know, she admitted. But understanding must start somewhere. We've shown them who we are. Now we wait to see who they choose to be. And if they choose war, he pressed. Juwan smiled sadly. Then we'll protect life, theirs and ours, until they're ready to make a different choice. That's what being human means now. Throughout human space, people continued their lives, creating, exploring, and connecting. Many now wore small rainbow pins showing stylized Duraxian and human figures standing together, inspired by a child's drawing that had, without anyone yet knowing it, begun to change the course of an alien civilization. The Duraxian fleet hung in space above Proxima VI, frozen in indecision. 3 days had passed since their weapons had mysteriously failed, and the humans had responded with their cultural transmission. Commander Vexmore had not slept. His 4 eyes were bloodshot as he paced the command deck, deep in thought. Status of the fleet, he asked his second-in-command. Unstable, Commander. The lower decks report. Discussions. Questions. Some ships report crew members refusing combat duties. Vexmore nodded grimly. The human messages had affected his people more than he had anticipated. Centuries of Duraxian tradition taught that combat was the purest form of communication between species. Yet these humans had somehow defeated them without firing a single shot. Commander, called the communications officer, we're detecting a small vessel approaching from the human colony. They're requesting to dock. Allow it, Vexmore decided. But be prepared. The human ship that docked was small and elegant. Dr. Tahoe Kim emerged, accompanied by High Admiral Juwan Park. They carried no weapons, only a small container. Commander Vexmore, Tahoe greeted with a respectful bow. Thank you for meeting with us. Your attack was effective, Vexmore admitted. Our crew morale is compromised. Not an attack, Juwan corrected gently. An invitation. To what purpose? Alliance, she said simply. We believe both our peoples can benefit from peaceful exchange. Before Vexmore could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. His tactical officer turned with panic in his eyes. Commander, 5 ships have broken formation. They're charging weapons. On the view screen, they watched as a small group of Duraxian warships moved into attack position, targeting the main human settlement on Proxima I. Rebellion, Vexmore growled. War Master Krasvor threatened this. He believes our honor demands we attack regardless of your demonstrations. Can you stop them? Tahoe asked urgently. I would need to return to my command ship and... There's no time, Juwan interrupted. She touched a communicator on her wrist. Admiral Park to Defense Network. Activate Protocol Gentle Hand. Throughout the system, hidden human defense systems activated. The rebellious Duraxian ships fired their weapons, but nothing happened. Their engines suddenly powered down, leaving them drifting harmlessly in space. What have you done? Vexmore asked, his voice a mix of awe and horror. We've temporarily disabled their systems, Juwan explained. No one is harmed. The ships can maintain life support, but nothing else. You could have done this to our entire fleet at any time, Vexmore realized. Yes, Tahoe acknowledged. But we don't want to control you. We want to connect with you. He opened the container they had brought. Inside was the original drawing by the child Subin, showing a Duraxian and human holding hands. Beside it lay a small data device. This contains our proposal for cultural exchange, technological cooperation, and territorial recognition, Tahoe explained. We acknowledge your people's need for honor and tradition. We propose new traditions, competitions in sports, science, art, and exploration. Vexmore stared at the child's drawing for a long moment. 3,000 years of Duraxian military history weighed on his shoulders. Yet something new pulled at him, a vision of possibility he had never considered. If I accept this, he said slowly, many will call me a traitor to our ways. Change is never easy, Juan said, but it is necessary for growth. 3 months later, High Admiral Juan Park stood in the newly constructed Harmony Center on New Terra. The domed building featured architecture that blended human and Duraxian styles. Inside, delegates from both species gathered to sign the formal cultural exchange agreement. Vexmore, no longer wearing his military armor but dressed in civilian diplomatic attire, approached her with a slight bow. The transition has been challenging, he admitted. Some military castes still resist, but the younger generation embraces change eagerly. How many ships have requested asylum now? Juan asked. 73. Nearly a quarter of our fleet. The others maintain distance but have ceased hostile actions. The signing ceremony began. Representatives from both species put their names to an agreement that acknowledged both cultures as equals with different strengths to share. The Duraxians would teach humans about their rich traditions of personal honor and competitive achievement. Humans would help Duraxians channel their competitive nature into non-destructive pursuits. Outside the center, a new sports arena had been constructed where Duraxian and human athletes competed in games that tested strength, speed, and strategy. Nearby, a joint scientific research facility investigated new technologies that neither species could have developed alone. 5 years later, Juan Park retired from her position as High Admiral. At her retirement ceremony, she found herself standing beside Vexmore, who now served as cultural ambassador. Did you ever imagine this outcome when you declared war on us? She asked with a smile. Vexmore's 4 eyes blinked in the pattern that humans had learned indicated amusement. Never. In our oldest traditions, the greatest victory comes from defeating a worthy enemy. I never considered that the greatest victory might be gaining a worthy friend. They watched as a group of children ran past. Some human, some Duraxian. They were playing a new game that combined elements from both cultures. A small Duraxian child stopped and handed Vexmore a drawing. It showed Duraxian and human figures standing together beneath stars, with the words, "The universe is better together," written in both languages. Vexmore carefully folded the drawing and placed it in his pocket next to another, much older drawing that he had kept all these years. The misunderstanding, as it had come to be called, was now taught in schools as the moment when two civilizations found a better path forward, together.